do we begin?
Where do we begin? Yeah. Okay. Well, first we should begin with introductions. The people who are following my channel, it's Lil. I was going to say, you guys know us with the Gianni system. It's Lil out today. It's Jonathan, our hubs, and then we have some guests with us. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
So I'm Mark. I am a relative recent person to D.I.D. I'm like 6 months in.
And I'm Barry. I'm his husband. I do not have D.I.D.
And he has been an amazing support for us through this.
That's awesome.
So Mark and I would chat and talking about how our spouses were so helpful and supportive. And so then the idea was brought up that this would be a great subject for our YouTube, where we can talk about like spouses and, you know, like not only their journey, but the things they did that were so helpful. And you'll have to not mind the dog. So Mark and Barry, how long have you guys been married?
Well, we've been together since 1990. And we got married in Toronto in
2003, right after Canada legalized it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And in fact, we were actually featured in USA Today as Americans coming across the border to get married.
That's fantastic.
How cool. That's awesome.
We've been together since 1990.
So 32 years almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you got us beat. We're at 20.
Yep. We started dating in 2001.
Yep. Married in 2002. So right before y'all.
Yep.
Sure for y'all.
Now, to be married for so many years in this day and age is really impressive.
Especially when there's so much evidence to all the failures that when you see the marriages that last for decades, I think everybody looks at them with like a little bit of awe. I know we certainly do.
And certainly D.I.D. adds up
a wrinkle.
Yeah, let's say that a wrinkle in
the whole element.
So, you know, you mentioned like relationships that have longevity, and we both had a relationship, a long established relationship before the D.I.D. was evident. And Jonathan has said the same thing that you did, Barry. Like, I can't imagine the ulcers not being in my life and so quick. Like, in just 6 months, your whole relationship is different.
She had just over the course of everything, she's had altars that have fused with each other, or, you know, and then sometimes they've split apart again. But oftentimes when altars fuse together, like, it's very emotional for me. Like, it's almost like, you know, you're losing somebody, even though they're both together. You know, it's that individual person.
Yes.
That you're losing. And it's like, will I ever see them again? You know, like, I know that I'll see glimpses in the fused pair, but like, will I actually see them again? You know?
Yes.
And it's been emotional a few times where, you know, an altar has known that they are going to fuse and has let me know about it ahead of time. And it's just, you know, it's tough sometimes.
We were on a cruise and Mark had gotten injured, and he got injured a second time in the medical facility because the stretcher was not locked in place.
Wow.
So he had a meltdown on the floor. He got better. He got onto the stretcher, and unbeknownst to me, Tom came out.
Tom is the altar who gets me through situations that can be overwhelming.
And he looked around, and if I had a sense of humor at the moment, I really would have laughed, because he looked around at the medical facilities and he said, "Oh, this can't be good." It was just a priceless moment. And whenever I think of Tom, I think of those two situations. And as I said earlier, I don't know if it got recorded, but I would not give these altars up for anything. Barb has been amazing. She is, she's the gal who, if something has to be said, she's going to say it. If she thinks you're being...
What has she accused you of?
Oh, of me? No,
Oh.
I'm good. But if she thinks you are being inappropriate, she will say, "You are being appropriate, and this is going to stop now." I have such an interesting relationship with each of them. Blaine, Mark's teenager, always says, "Hey, old man," to me, and I say, "Hey, young man," to him. It's neat, and Carol is just delightful. We play with dolls. Today she wanted some candy, so we had candy and we spoke to each other, and we have special hugs. Basically hugs, but sometimes we'll hug each other's arm or jiggle when we hug. Special hugs.
Yeah.
But I could not imagine 20 years ago, 15 years ago,
5 years ago,
a year ago, I could not imagine having this kind of marriage/relationship.
What's the transition been like from like your singlet experience? Also, were there any bleed through moments that you noticed to the relationship that you have now with Mark and all the altars?
Yes, but I didn't know what to call it, and I didn't think of it. One situation comes to mind. We were having some flight issues. We were trying to go on a cruise, and flights got canceled. There were problems.
This was a big nationwide thing that took several days for Southwest to clean up.
And Mark basically said, "Okay, here are the things we need to do. I'm going to get on the phone. We're going to do it. You'll do this, you'll do this, you'll do this." And we got it all done. Was that Mark? Well, it was this body, but this body never said, "Oh, and by the way, I'm Tom. We haven't met. Nice to meet you."
Right.
It didn't happen. So, yes, there were. What is the expression? Hindsight has 20/20 vision. Yeah, there were times where he was Tom. There was another time at my brother's funeral, going there, he had a panic attack. Was that Mark, or maybe Carol just being really scared?
Actually, I think that was me having a panic attack for whatever reason. And then I think Carol fronted and actually got us out of the airport.
Oh,
At least out of baggage claim.
See, I didn't, I mean, I knew that now, but I didn't know that then. And
well, right. And even now we're just sort of guessing. We're looking at things and say this kind of felt as if it were.
Right.
Right.
So you never really know until all the symptoms, most of the symptoms, many of the symptoms of D.I.D. manifest themselves.
Blow up in your face?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it that way. I would say manifest themselves.
Okay, that's very nicely done. Thank you.
So how did you go from just your spouse as you know them? How did you make that that move to accepting all these different people and not just the person that you married or that you had been in love with or who you thought you knew for all those years.
I guess I was kind of lucky with Marc's D.I.D. because he first presented his D.I.D. as front mark, back mark. And without mentioning any real names, back in the 1980s, I was lucky enough to be part of a seminar in Europe. And while in Europe, I made the acquaintance of a professor of a Midwestern university. And her specialization at the seminar was, in effect, hypnosis and fronting and backing. Not in a D.I.D. perspective, but if you've lost something, just ask your back person to help you find it, and your back person will go and do it, and will give you the answer all in due course. So when Marc mentioned front mark, back mark, I said, oh, yeah, I totally get that.
Right.
Front mark, back mark evolved a little bit. And it's been a whirlwind to understand, especially since Marc has processed so much so quickly. I've been dragged along, really, but I absolutely
thank you, Pharmacological Solutions.
Yeah, I absolutely have to say that I know Marc's altars, and I love every one of them, and I just could not imagine. I could not imagine not seeing them anymore. And
we've really redefined what our family is.
I bought them Christmas gifts this year.
Last year.
This past year, yeah. Every one of them. They got a Christmas gift from me. What was October something that I recommend everybody having? Absolutely not. It was not fun. But the important thing I would say to anybody listening out there, certainly you two know this, talk with one another, because if you shut out the altars or any of the altars, you're really shutting out the host. And to invalidate your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your significant other, to negate them, to discount them, I've got to believe would be so incredibly insulting that I wouldn't want to be in a relationship like that.
For me to get through this, for us to get through this, we need to be able to speak openly, frankly, directly, not beat around the bush. And I think for me, that's been tremendously important.
Absolutely. If I have a problem, we've developed our own language, if you will, where I can say, are you okay? Because I want to talk with you about something pertaining to your mental stability or my mental stability.
Well, to put that a little bit more in context, we put it very lightly. If we just go to the other person, we say stable. And that just sets the tone to be able to receive something that might be difficult.
Yeah.
So that wasn't the absolute beginning, but it was a major step forward in terms of accepting D.I.D, dealing with D.I.D, and talking about D.I.D.
And to be fair, a lot of the stuff early on, before I even knew I had D.I.D, was just all the flashbacks I was going through.
Right. Early on, the flashbacks were very scary for Mark and for me. And a lot of the tears that we both shed were fear and being scared.
So what I'm hearing, and you can correct me, is like before even having this conversation about D.I.D and like grieving this whole new process. Even before that, you guys had an established pattern for assessing each other's like mental well-being and being able to talk about that sort of thing.
Because of the pandemic.
Yeah, the pandemic played a big role in Mark's D.I.D acceptance and in our discussion of health, physical or psychological.
Sure.
The pandemic was the 2-year beginning that led me to D.I.D. The stress, anxiety of all that just kept wearing on me, and the symptoms got worse and worse later in the 2020s when the flashbacks started. And it was during that time that we started developing that language to be able to talk about mental health directly.
Yeah.
That was part of our journey as well, because we were I was having heavy dissociation, which we didn't have the words for.
It was like there was a Christmas, which Christmas to her birthday is always a hard time. And like it was a whole Christmas season that she was just not herself. Like it was like there was no emotion or feeling behind her eyes. Like she was just a zombie. Like there was no emotional whatever. And so I was like, is this ever going to get better? And she was like, I don't know.
And I was not really good about talking about my feelings yet. And so because that was so like you said, noticeable, like I wasn't myself, I wasn't okay. I started therapy, but he came and was learning those skills with me. So we were, before the D.I.D became more manifest, we were setting down the skills to be able to work through flashbacks, to work through like emotional upheaval that I hadn't known how to deal with or how to share with him. And it was a good foundation to build.
I will say, I have had this concept for about a year or two before all this even started, that there were times when I just didn't feel like I knew myself from the previous day. I'm a software engineer, and I would write some code, and it was really good code. And the next day I would look at it like, I wrote this? And now I understand why.
So I am grateful to both of you, because this is a really great opportunity for us to talk and for everybody to listen, that D.I.D is not a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of issue. He's not going to wake up one day wielding an axe trying to kill me.
Right.
Any of his alters, well, he might, or any of his alters, no, you wouldn't, I know you, aren't, gonna harm me. And I think having videos like this, having discussions like this, frank discussions like this, can do so much, not only for the DID community, but for the new people who think DID is multiple personality disorder, like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.